He watches his daughter for the first time through a car window. 7 years old. The DNA test proves he's her father, after he told 2 million followers her mother cheated. After he destroyed her life over a lie he believed. Now he has to face what he's done. Before we dive in, comment where in the world you are watching from, and don't forget to click subscribe. The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor of the penthouse, and Jasmine watched the golden liquid spread like her unraveling life. Marcus stood across the room, his face drained of color, his hand still raised from throwing the glass past her head. Not at her. Never at her. That wasn't who he was, or who she thought he was. "Say it again," he whispered, and the quiet was worse than screaming. "Tell me again what you just told me." Her hand moved to her stomach, a protective gesture she couldn't stop. 6 weeks. That's all it had been. 6 weeks of knowing, of planning how to tell him, of imagining his face lighting up the way it did when good things happened. She'd been so stupid. "I'm pregnant," Jasmine said, and her voice didn't shake. She'd learned not to shake in boardrooms full of men who looked at her like she'd wandered into the wrong building. She'd learned not to shake when her own mother said she was reaching too high, loving too white, dreaming too big. But God, she wanted to shake now. Marcus laughed, and it was a sound she'd never heard from him before. Hollow. Pregnant. "You're pregnant." He turned to the window, to the Atlanta skyline glittering below them like scattered diamonds. "We've been together 8 months, Jasmine. 8 months. Do you know how many times I've been away on business in the last 3? Marcus, I don't understand what you're 17 days in Singapore, 2 weeks in London, 10 days in Tokyo." He spun back to face her, and she saw something die in his blue eyes, something that had looked at her like she was magic. "I've been tracking every trip, every night we weren't together, because part of me knew. Part of me always knows when something's wrong." The accusation hung between them like smoke. Jasmine felt her lungs forget how to work. "You think I cheated on you?" The words came out flat. Not a question. A realization that the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. "I think the math doesn't work." Marcus moved to the bar, poured scotch with hands that trembled. "I think you're a beautiful woman who I'm gone from too much. I think men look at you everywhere we go. I think that assistant at your firm, David, looks at you like you're water and he's dying of thirst." "David?" Jasmine almost laughed, but the sound caught in her throat like glass. "David is married. David has 3 kids. David is—" "I'm not saying it's David." Marcus drank, and she watched his throat work. "I'm saying I don't know who it is, but I know it's not mine. The baby." He was calling the baby not his. Her hand pressed harder against her stomach, as if she could shield what was inside from words that cut deeper than any blade. "You're wrong." Jasmine moved toward him, but he stepped back, away from her. "Marcus, you're wrong. I would never. My father cheated on my mother for 15 years. His voice had gone somewhere else, somewhere dark and old. She knew. She always knew. But she didn't leave because of the money, the lifestyle, the image. She stayed and smiled and died a little every day until there was nothing left but a woman taking pills to sleep and wine to wake up." He looked at Jasmine, and she saw his mother in his eyes. "I swore I'd never be him. And I swore I'd never be her. I'm not your mother. You're not your father. And this baby, don't call it that." The words cracked like a whip. "Don't call it this baby like it's mine. Like you didn't let someone else—" "Stop." Jasmine's voice came out hard now, the voice she used when venture capitalists told her she didn't understand market dynamics. "Stop right there. You don't get to finish that sentence. You don't get to make this ugly. It's already ugly." Marcus set down his glass. "The truth is always ugly." "The truth?" Jasmine felt something shift inside her, something that had been bending, finally snapping straight. "The truth is, I've spent 8 months trying to fit into your world. Your country clubs, where I'm the only black face in a sea of white linen. Your business dinners, where your colleagues' wives ask me if I used to model instead of assuming I might have my own company. Your mother, who asked me 3 times in one dinner if I was sure about my background, like she was waiting for me to confess to being someone's maid's daughter. That's not fair. My mother is... Your mother tolerates me because you chose me, not because she sees me as good enough for her precious son. The words were coming faster now, hot and true. And now, you're going to stand here and accuse me of the one thing I've never done, never would do. Because what? The math doesn't work. The timing isn't perfect. Marcus's jaw tightened. You're twisting this. I'm making you look at it. Jasmine felt tears burning, but she wouldn't let them fall. Not yet. You know what I've sacrificed to be with you? I've defended you to my family. My father hasn't spoken to me in 3 months, because I'm dating a white billionaire who he thinks sees me as some exotic conquest. My best friend from college told me I was selling out, playing into stereotypes. And I defended you. I told them you were different, that you saw me. I do see you. No. Jasmine shook her head. You see what you want to see? A beautiful distraction. A way to prove you're not like your father. But the second things get complicated, the second I'm not the perfect girlfriend who laughs at yacht parties and looks good in photographs, you turn me into her. Into whatever woman hurt your father. Into whatever you fear most. That's not what I'm doing. Then what are you doing? Jasmine moved closer, close enough to see the conflict in his face. Tell me, Marcus. Because from where I'm standing, you're calling me a liar and a cheater. You're saying this baby isn't yours. So either prove it, or take it back. The silence stretched. Outside, a siren wailed. Inside, everything was breaking. I can't, Marcus finally said. I can't just believe you. Not when everything inside me is screaming that something's wrong. Then we're done. The words came from somewhere deep, somewhere she didn't know existed until this moment. Because I won't spend my life proving I'm faithful. I won't be your mother, begging to be believed, dying slowly for love. She turned toward the bedroom, toward her things, toward a life she'd have to rebuild from nothing. Where are you going? His voice cracked. Away from you. Jasmine didn't look back. If she looked back, she'd see his face. And if she saw his face, she might stay. Away from your doubts and your damage, and your inability to trust that someone might actually love you. Jasmine, wait. I'm keeping the baby. She stopped at the bedroom door. Your baby, whether you believe it or not. And you're going to spend the rest of your life knowing you threw us away because you couldn't recognize the truth when it was standing in front of you. She packed in 20 minutes. 8 months of slowly moving her life into his penthouse, condensed into 2 suitcases, and a heart that felt like it had been hit by a train. Marcus didn't try to stop her again. He stood by that window, staring out at the city, while she erased herself from his space. At the door, she hesitated. One last chance for him to say the words that would fix this. One last chance for him to choose her, choose them, choose trust over fear. He didn't turn around. The elevator ride down felt like falling. 32 floors of watching the numbers descend, each one a memory. The night they met at a charity gala, and he'd asked if she was lost because she couldn't possibly be attending the boring art auction. The morning he'd made her breakfast and burned the eggs because he was too busy staring at her. The afternoon he'd shown up at her office with flowers just because it was Tuesday. The evening he'd told her he was falling in love and looked terrified by it. She'd thought terrified was sweet, vulnerable, real. She hadn't known it was a warning. The lobby was empty this late, just a night doorman who nodded as she passed. Outside, the September air hit her face, warm and thick with the promise of a storm. Jasmine looked up at the building, counted to the 32nd floor, saw the lights still blazing in the penthouse. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. I'm sorry. Not, I believe you. Not come back. Not, I was wrong. Just, I'm sorry. She deleted it without responding. The taxi ride to her friend Keisha's apartment was a blur of streetlights and swallowed tears. She wouldn't cry yet. Crying was for later, for when she was safe, for when she could fall apart without an audience. Keisha opened the door before Jasmine knocked, took one look at her face, and pulled her inside without a word. That's when the tears came. hot and furious and endless. She cried for the man she thought Marcus was. She cried for the future she'd been imagining. She cried for the baby who would grow up without a father, because that father was too broken to be whole. "He thinks I cheated," Jasmine said between sobs. "He thinks the baby isn't his." Keisha's arms tightened around her. "Then he's a fool." "He is." Jasmine pulled back, wiped her face. "But he's also the father of my child, and I don't know what to do." What she didn't know, couldn't know, was that 3 blocks away, Marcus was making a phone call. His lawyer answered on the second ring. "I need you to draft something," Marcus said, his voice empty of everything but purpose. "A public statement. I want everyone to know what she did." "Marcus, maybe you should wait until morning. Until you've had time to—" "Now." The word was ice. "I want it done now." The statement went out at midnight, posted to his social media accounts with their combined followers of over 2 million people. Brief. Devastating. Surgical in its destruction. It's with a heavy heart that I announce the end of my relationship with Jasmine Clark. Recently discovering infidelity has made it impossible to continue. I wish her well, but we'll be moving forward alone. He didn't mention the pregnancy. He didn't have to. The comments filled in the blanks, each one a small violence. Gold digger. Opportunist. Typical. She should have known better than to try to trap him. He dodged a bullet. By morning, Jasmine's phone had 300 notifications. Tags. Shares. Comments from people who didn't know her, but had opinions about her body, her choices, her worth. They called her a gold digger who'd gotten what she deserved. They said she should have known better than to think a man like Marcus would stay with someone like her, and they meant it exactly the way it sounded. They dissected her appearance, her background, her company, looking for proof that she'd always been a fraud. Someone found her college photos and shared them with commentary about how she'd clearly been planning this for years. Another account posted side-by-side images of her and Marcus's ex-girlfriends, all blonde and blue-eyed, with the caption that he'd clearly been slumming and finally woke up. Jasmine watched her professional reputation disintegrate in real time. Clients started canceling meetings. A deal she'd been negotiating for months fell through when the investor sent a terse email about reconsidering their partnership. Her assistant looked at her with pity during their morning meeting, and that somehow hurt worse than the hatred from strangers. By afternoon, a reporter had found her firm's address, then another. By 3 o'clock, there were cameras outside the building, and Jasmine had to exit through the parking garage like a criminal. By evening, her boss called her into his office with a face full of regret and a severance package that felt like 30 pieces of silver. "The optics," he said, not meeting her eyes. "With everything online, the firm's reputation, you understand. We can't have this kind of publicity attached to the company. It's nothing personal, Jasmine. You're incredibly talented, but in this climate, with the attention you're receiving." "You mean with the lies being spread about me," Jasmine corrected, her voice cold. "With the character assassination happening because a billionaire decided to punish me for getting pregnant." Her boss shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not making a judgment about the truth of the situation. I'm simply saying that the firm cannot weather this storm while you're employed here. I'm sorry. I truly am." She understood. She understood that Marcus hadn't just left her. He'd destroyed her. He'd used his platform, his power, his privilege to paint her as the villain, and the world had believed him because that's what the world always did. Believed the rich white man over the black woman who dared to reach above her station. That night, alone in Keisha's guest room, Jasmine felt the baby move for the first time. A flutter, barely there, like a butterfly trapped against her palm. She pressed her hand flat against her stomach and made a promise. "I've got you," she whispered. "He doesn't believe in you, but I do. He doesn't want you, but I do. And I'm going to prove him wrong. I'm going to build something so strong that when he realizes his mistake, it won't matter anymore. We won't need him." The months that followed were a special kind of hell. Jasmine's savings ran out. Her job offers dried up. Every interview ended with the same uncomfortable silence after they Googled her name. The story had taken on a life of its own, morphed in the retelling until she was no longer a person but a cautionary tale. She moved back to her parents' house, to the small bedroom she'd left at 18 with dreams bigger than the neighborhood. Her father didn't say "I told you so," but she saw it in his eyes every time he looked at her growing belly. Her mother tried to help, but every kindness felt like pity. "You could reach out to him," her mother said once, folding tiny clothes they'd bought at the thrift store. "Ask for support. He's the father." "He's not." Jasmine took the clothes, put them away. "Not in any way that matters. A father shows up." He left. In February, during a rare Atlanta snowfall, Jasmine gave birth to a daughter, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, with a head full of dark curls and eyes that hadn't decided their color yet. She named her Riley, after her grandmother. Strong name. Survivor name. The nurse asked if she should call the father. Jasmine said there was no father to call. Marcus found out through social media, through a mutual friend's post congratulating Jasmine. He looked at the photo of the baby, tried to see himself in her features. Couldn't. Tried to feel regret. Couldn't. Tried to convince himself he'd made the right choice. Almost succeeded. He threw himself into work, expanded his company, made another million, then another. Dated women who looked nothing like Jasmine. Told himself he was happy. Told himself he'd dodged a bullet. Told himself the ache in his chest was indigestion, not loss. The years blurred together. Riley grew from infant to toddler to little girl. Jasmine built a new life from the ashes of the old one, started a consulting business from her laptop, slowly rebuilt her reputation. It wasn't the life she'd planned, but it was hers, and it was clean in ways the old life never was. She didn't date, didn't trust, didn't let anyone close enough to hurt her again. Riley asked about her father once when she was 5. "Where is he?" Jasmine had prepared for this question, had an answer ready that was both true and kind. "He wasn't ready to be a daddy, but I was ready to be a mommy, so that's what matters." Riley had accepted this, the way children accept difficult truths when they're wrapped in love. But children grow. They ask harder questions. They deserve better answers. On Riley's 7th birthday, Jasmine watched her daughter blow out candles surrounded by friends from school, and felt the old wound open fresh. Riley deserved to know where she came from. Deserved to have both parents if that was possible. Deserved more than Jasmine's anger and Marcus's absence. That night, after the party, after the cleanup, after Riley was asleep, Jasmine did something she'd sworn she'd never do. She searched for Marcus online. His company had tripled in size. He'd been featured in Forbes, in Bloomberg, in every publication that mattered. He looked older in the photos, harder around the eyes. There was a woman next to him in some pictures, blonde and elegant, and everything Jasmine wasn't. The caption called her his fiancée, something twisted in Jasmine's chest. Not jealousy, she told herself. Just the ghost of what could have been. She was about to close the laptop when she saw it. A recent interview from just last month, talking about his success, his journey, his regrets. "I've learned that trust is earned," Marcus said in the interview. "I've learned that sometimes people aren't who you think they are. I've learned to protect myself, to verify before believing." He was still talking about her. 7 years later, and he was still telling their story as if he was the victim. The anger that rose in Jasmine was cold and clarifying. She pulled out her phone, scrolled to a number she'd saved but never called. His lawyer's office. It took 3 transfers and 20 minutes of waiting, but finally, a receptionist picked up. "I need to speak with Marcus Thorne," Jasmine said. "Tell him it's Jasmine Clark. Tell him it's about his daughter. And tell him I want a paternity test." The silence on the other end was long. "Ms. Clark, I'm not sure Mr. Thorne will be." "He will be." Jasmine's voice didn't shake. "Because I'm going to prove he was wrong. And then he's going to have to live with what he did. Put me through. Or I'm going to every media outlet that covered his accusations, and I'm going to tell them he abandoned his child." 5 minutes later, Marcus's voice came through the line. Jasmine, hearing him say her name after 7 years felt like touching a live wire. "I want a paternity test," she said. No greeting, no preamble. For Riley, your daughter. He stopped, started again. Why now? Why after all this time? Because she's asking questions. Because she deserves to know her father. And because you've spent 7 years telling everyone I'm a liar. Jasmine's grip on the phone tightened. So let's settle it. Once and for all. Either you take the test and we prove you're her father, or you take the test and prove you're not. But either way, this ends. And if I refuse, then I go public. Riley's school pictures, her birth certificate with no father's name, every newspaper article about your accusations. I tell them all that you refuse to verify your own daughter because you're too proud to admit you might have been wrong. She heard him breathing, heard the calculations happening behind the silence. Fine, Marcus said finally. Set it up. But when this proves me right, when it shows I'm not the father, you're going to issue a public apology. You're going to admit you lied. And when it proves you wrong? Jasmine's voice was steady. When it shows that you spent 7 years calling me a cheater, that you destroyed my reputation, that you abandoned your own child. What then, Marcus? That won't happen. We'll see. They arranged everything through lawyers. A private lab, a court-admissible test. Results in 1 week. Marcus went to his appointment confident, certain. He'd lived 7 years on the foundation of being right about this. His entire narrative, his ability to move forward, his relationship with his fiancée. All of it was built on the truth of Jasmine's betrayal. The doctor was clinical, efficient, a simple cheek swab, DNA collected, processing time minimal. Marcus went home and tried not to think about it, tried to focus on work, on his wedding plans, on anything but the memory of Jasmine's voice on the phone, hard and sure, and nothing like the woman he remembered. Jasmine went to her appointment with Riley, who thought the cheek swab was funny, who made a game of it, who had no idea this test would change everything. Why do we have to do this, Mama? Riley asked on the drive home. Just some medical stuff, baby, Jasmine said, and hated herself for the lie. Nothing to worry about. But she was worried. Not about the results, she knew those. She was worried about what came after, about opening this door that had been closed for 7 years, about letting Marcus back in, even at the edges of their lives, about Riley's heart breaking the way hers had. The week crawled by. Jasmine couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, played out every scenario in her mind until they all blurred together. She'd wake at 3 in the morning, heart racing, imagining the moment Marcus would see the results. Would he feel regret? Shame? Or would he find some way to twist even scientific proof into doubt? During the day, she moved through her routine like a ghost, made Riley breakfast, packed her lunch, walked her to school, smiled at the other mothers who didn't know that in a few days, everything might change. That the man who'd destroyed her might suddenly want back into their lives, and she'd have to decide whether to let him or protect her daughter from disappointment. "Mama, you okay?" Riley asked one morning, those perceptive eyes seeing too much. "You seem sad." "Just tired, baby," Jasmine lied, smoothing Riley's hair. "Grown-up stuff. Nothing for you to worry about." But Riley worried anyway, the way children do when they sense their parents' pain but don't have words for it yet. She drew pictures in art class of families with mothers and daughters, and conspicuously absent fathers. She asked her teacher if all families looked different, and could a family be just 2 people? Jasmine heard about it during pickup, and her heart broke a little more. This test would either give Riley a father, or confirm that the only parent she'd ever needed was already there. Either way, their small world of 2 was about to be tested. Marcus threw himself into work, into wedding planning, into anything that kept his mind busy. His fiancée noticed his distraction, asked what was wrong, and he lied. Said it was stress from a merger. Said everything was fine. Said the words that people say when their entire world is balanced on the edge of a truth they're not ready to face. But late at night, alone in his penthouse, the same penthouse where it all fell apart, he would stand by that window and wonder. The window where he'd stood 7 years ago, watching Jasmine leave. The window where he'd convinced himself he was right, that the math worked, that she'd betrayed him. What if he'd been wrong? The thought was brief, quickly pushed away. He couldn't have been wrong. The math hadn't worked. The timing was off. She'd been lying, and he'd been right to call it out, right to protect himself. He'd built 7 years of life on this foundation. His relationships, his choices, his narrative about who he was and what had happened to him. But still, that small voice in the dark. What if? He'd pull out his old calendar, look at the dates again, trying to make the numbers work the way they had 7 years ago, trying to find certainty in schedules and itineraries, trying to avoid the possibility that he'd destroyed everything over a mistake. The results came on a Thursday. Both lawyers received them simultaneously. Both called their clients with the same information. Jasmine answered her phone at work, stepped into an empty conference room. Ms. Clark, her lawyer said, and his voice had changed, had softened with something like reverence. The results are back. Marcus Thorne is Riley's biological father, 99.99% certainty. He's her father. Jasmine closed her eyes and felt 7 years of weight lift off her shoulders. Vindication, truth, proof. Thank you, she said quietly. Thank you for telling me. Across the city, Marcus sat in his office, phone pressed to his ear, listening to his lawyer repeat the same numbers. 99.99% probability of paternity. Marcus, she's yours. Riley is your daughter. The world tilted. The floor dropped away. Everything Marcus had built his life on for 7 years crumbled into dust. That's impossible, he whispered. The timing, the math, it didn't... I had them run it twice, his lawyer said. Same results. There's no doubt. You're her father. You've always been her father. Marcus ended the call, set down his phone, stared at nothing. He'd been wrong. He'd called her a cheater, destroyed her reputation, made her life hell, abandoned his own child, spent 7 years believing he'd been the victim, when really, he'd been the villain. The magnitude of it was crushing, the weight of it impossible to carry. His phone rang. His fiancée. Marcus? Did you get the results? What did they say? He couldn't answer, couldn't form words. Because everything he'd told her, everything he'd told himself, all of it had been a lie. Marcus? I have to go, he said, and hung up. He needed to see her, needed to see Jasmine, needed to apologize, needed to somehow fix 7 years of damage in a single conversation. But first, he needed to understand how he'd been so catastrophically wrong. The answer came from his own records, from digging through old calendars and travel itineraries. That week, the week it must have happened. He'd been scheduled for Singapore, but the trip had been canceled last minute. He'd come home a day early, surprised Jasmine at her apartment. They'd spent the afternoon in bed, celebrating his unexpected return. He'd forgotten, in all his calculations, in all his certainty, he'd forgotten about the canceled trip. The one time the schedule changed. The one day that made all the difference. He'd destroyed everything over his own faulty memory. Marcus stood up, grabbed his keys, and drove to the address his lawyer had provided. A modest house in a middle-class neighborhood. So different from the penthouse, from the life they could have had. He parked across the street and waited, because he didn't know what else to do. Didn't know how to face this. Didn't know how to look at Jasmine and say he'd been wrong when wrong didn't begin to cover it. The front door opened. A little girl ran out, all dark curls and bright laughter. She was chasing a butterfly, arms outstretched, face full of wonder. 7 years old and completely unself-conscious in her joy, the way children are before the world teaches them to be careful with their happiness. Marcus's breath caught. She looked like him. Her nose, slightly upturned at the end. Her chin, with that same determined set. The way she moved, determined and graceful all at once, like she owned the world and was just letting everyone else borrow it for a while. But she had Jasmine's skin, rich and deep brown, and Jasmine's expressive eyes that seemed to hold entire universes. She was the perfect blend of them both. The child they'd made together in love, before fear destroyed everything. His daughter. He'd missed 7 years of her life. 7 years of first words and first steps, and all the moments that mattered. Her first day of school, her first lost tooth, her first nightmare, her first everything. 7 years of bedtime stories and skinned knees and questions about why the sky is blue. 7 years of being her father, and he'd thrown it away because he couldn't trust the woman he claimed to love. Because he'd chosen the safety of cynicism over the risk of faith. The door opened again. Jasmine stepped out, calling after Riley to stay in the yard. She was different too. Older. Tired, but still beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. She saw his car, saw him sitting there. Their eyes met across the distance, and Marcus saw everything he'd done written in her expression. Jasmine's face went hard. She said something to Riley, sent her inside, then walked across the street toward him. Marcus got out of the car, and they stood there in the fading afternoon light, 7 years and a lifetime between them. "You have a lot of nerve showing up here," Jasmine said, and her voice could cut glass. Marcus opened his mouth, but the words wouldn't come. What could he possibly say? "I'm sorry" felt like bringing a Band-Aid to a massacre. "The results came back," she continued, crossing her arms like armor. "But you already know that. That's why you're here. Not because you wanted to see her. Not because you cared. Because now you have proof, and it's eating you alive." "Jasmine, don't." She held up a hand. "Don't you dare come here with apologies like they mean something. Like they changed the last 7 years. Like they give Riley back the father she should have had. I was wrong." The words finally came, hollow and insufficient. "I was so wrong, and I don't know how to..." "How to what? Fix it?" Jasmine laughed, bitter and sharp. "You can't fix this, Marcus. You can't undo what you did. You called me a cheater in front of millions of people. You cost me my job, my reputation, my life. I had to start over from nothing while you built an empire on the ruins of what you destroyed." "I know." Marcus's voice broke. "I know, and I would give anything to take it back. But you can't." Jasmine stepped closer, and he could see the tears she was fighting. "You can't take it back. You can't give me those years back. You can't give Riley her father back. You made a choice based on fear, and we paid the price. I'll do anything." Marcus was begging now, and he didn't care. "Tell me what to do. Tell me how to make this right." "There is no making this right." Jasmine's voice softened, and somehow that was worse. "That's what you don't understand. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. They can only be grieved." "So that's it? I don't get a chance? I don't get to know my daughter?" "Your daughter?" The words came out harsh. "Now she's your daughter? When the DNA test says so? When it's convenient? When you can't deny it anymore?" Jasmine shook her head. "She's been your daughter this whole time, Marcus. Every day you chose not to believe me was a day you abandoned her. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference." Jasmine wiped her eyes roughly. "You were so convinced I betrayed you that you couldn't see the truth right in front of you. You wanted me to be the villain so badly because it was easier than facing your own damage. The truth of it hit him like a physical blow. She was right. He'd been looking for betrayal because betrayal was familiar. Because his father's infidelity had taught him that love always came with lies. Because he'd been waiting for Jasmine to prove him right about women, about relationships, about the futility of trust. My father," Marcus started, then stopped. "That's not an excuse. I know it's not an excuse. No, it's not." Jasmine's voice gentled slightly. "But it's an explanation. And maybe that matters. I don't know anymore." They stood in silence, the weight of 7 years pressing down on both of them. "What was she like?" Marcus finally asked. "As a baby. What was Riley like?" Jasmine's expression shifted, softened around the edges. Loud. She came out screaming and didn't stop for 3 months. The doctors said it was colic, but I think she was just angry at the world. Can't say I blamed her. Despite everything, Marcus almost smiled. She got that from you. She got a lot from you, too. Jasmine glanced back at the house. She's brilliant. Reads at a 9th grade level. Asks questions that make my head spin. She wants to be an astronaut one day, or a marine biologist, or both. She hasn't decided yet. Can I meet her? The question came out small, afraid of the answer. I don't know. Jasmine wrapped her arms tighter around herself. I don't know if that's fair to her. She's 7, Marcus. She's had 7 years without you. 7 years of me explaining why she doesn't have a dad like other kids. 7 years of birthday parties and Christmas mornings and first days of school without you there. I want to change that. Wanting isn't enough. Jasmine's eyes met his. Proving it is. And I don't know if you can. Let me try. Marcus took a step closer. Please. Let me try to be the father she deserves. You can't just walk in and be a father. It doesn't work like that. Jasmine's voice was firm. You don't get to decide you're ready and expect her to fall in line. She's a person, Marcus. A person you've never met. A person who has questions you may not be able to answer. Then help me answer them. He could hear the desperation in his own voice. Help me figure out how to do this. I know I don't deserve your help. I know I don't deserve anything from you. But Riley deserves to know her father. Jasmine was quiet for a long time, and Marcus could see the war happening behind her eyes. The mother who wanted to protect her daughter from disappointment. The woman who'd been hurt too deeply to trust again. The part of her that maybe, despite everything, remembered who they'd been together. If I do this, she said slowly, if I let you meet her, it's on my terms. You don't get to swoop in and disrupt her life. You don't get to make promises you can't keep. You don't get to break her heart the way you broke mine. I won't. Marcus's hands clenched at his sides. I swear to you, I won't. Your swears don't mean much to me anymore. Jasmine's words were sharp but not cruel, just honest. So here's how this works. You want to be her father? You earn it. Slowly, carefully, on her schedule, not yours. Okay. Marcus would have agreed to anything. Whatever you think is right. I think you should issue a public statement first. Jasmine's voice went hard again. I think you should tell everyone who heard your accusations that you were wrong. I think you should clear my name before you get to be a father. The request hit him like ice water. Public admission of being wrong. Publicly admitting he'd destroyed an innocent woman's reputation. His company, his image, his engagement. All of it built on the foundation of being the wronged party. You're hesitating, Jasmine observed. Already hesitating. And that tells me everything I need to know. I'm not hesitating. Marcus forced the words out. You're right. I'll do it. I'll tell everyone the truth. When? Tonight. I'll post it tonight. Jasmine studied him, looking for the lie, the escape clause. And you'll include the DNA results. You'll make it clear that Riley is your daughter, and you were wrong about everything. Yes. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'll do it right now. You can watch me type it. I don't want to watch you type it. Jasmine turned back toward her house. I want you to do it because it's the right thing to do, not because I'm standing here making you. And that's the difference between us, Marcus. I do the right thing even when it costs me. You do the convenient thing and call it justified. The words stung because they were true. I'll do better, Marcus said to her, retreating back. I'll be better. Jasmine stopped at her front door but didn't turn around. We'll see. She went inside, and Marcus was left standing on the sidewalk, phone in hand. Everything he'd built about to crumble. He opened his social media, stared at the blank space that would hold his confession. His fiancée would see this. His business partners. His mother. Everyone who'd supported him through the breakup, who'd agreed that Jasmine was a gold digger, a liar, untrustworthy. His finger hovered over the keyboard. Then he saw movement in the window. Riley, pressing her face against the glass, looking at him with curious eyes. His daughter. The one he'd denied. The one he'd abandoned. The one who deserved better than a father who put his pride before the truth. Marcus started typing. 7 years ago, I made the worst mistake of my life. I publicly accused Jasmine Clark of infidelity when she told me she was pregnant. I was wrong. A DNA test has confirmed that Riley Clark is my biological daughter. I spent 7 years believing a lie I told myself, and in doing so, I destroyed an innocent woman's reputation and abandoned my own child. There is no apology sufficient for this. There is no explanation that justifies it. I was wrong, and Jasmine and Riley deserve better. The world deserves to know the truth. I'm sorry doesn't fix this, but it's where I have to start. He read it 3 times. Each time he felt the weight of what posting it would cost him. His reputation, his credibility, his relationship, his carefully constructed narrative. Then he posted it anyway. The response was immediate and brutal. His phone exploded with notifications. Calls from his lawyer, his publicist, his business partners, all asking what the hell he was thinking. His fiance's name flashed on the screen. He let it ring through to voicemail. Then listened to her message, her voice cold with betrayal. You lied to me. For 2 years you lied to me. You said she cheated. You said the baby wasn't yours. And I defended you. I told everyone you were the victim. Now I look like a fool. A pause, heavy with hurt. Don't call me back. Don't come to the apartment. We're done. Marcus deleted the message and felt nothing. Or maybe he felt too much, and nothing was easier to process. His mother called next. He answered because avoiding her was impossible. Marcus Anthony Thorne, she said, using his full name the way she had when he was a child. Explain to me what I'm reading. It's the truth, Mom. Marcus sat down on the curb, suddenly exhausted. I was wrong about Jasmine. I have a daughter. I've had a daughter for 7 years, and I didn't know because I was too damaged to trust. Damaged? His mother's voice sharpened. What does that mean? It means I spent so long watching Dad destroy you that I saw betrayal everywhere. Even where it didn't exist. The words came easier than expected. It means I turned into him anyway, just in a different way. The silence on the other end was long. Your father's choices were his own, his mother finally said, and her voice had lost its edge. They weren't your burden to carry. But you made them your burden anyway. And now an innocent child has paid the price. I know. Marcus pressed his palm against his eyes. I know, and I don't know how to fix it. You can't fix it. His mother's words echoed Jasmine's. But you can do better going forward. That child, your daughter, she deserves a father who shows up, who fights for her, who loves her more than he fears being hurt. What if I can't be that father? Then you figure out how. His mother's voice softened. Because the alternative is becoming the man you've always feared being. The man who leaves. The man who destroys. The man who chooses his own comfort over his child's well-being. After they hung up, Marcus sat on that curb until the streetlights came on. Watched families come home. Watched life happen in living room windows. Watched the ordinary magic of people who hadn't destroyed everything they touched. His phone buzzed with a message from Jasmine. I saw your post. Thank you for telling the truth. Just that. No invitation. No forgiveness. Just acknowledgement that he'd done the bare minimum. Marcus drove home to his empty penthouse and spent the night watching the city lights, wondering how to become someone worthy of being Riley's father. The next morning he called his lawyer. I want to set up child support. Retroactive to her birth. Whatever the court would have ordered, I want to pay it. His lawyer coughed. Marcus, that's 7 years of payments. With your income, we're talking about... I don't care what it costs. Marcus cut him off. She's my daughter. I should have been supporting her all along. Figure out the amount and set up the payments. There's also the matter of custody. No custody arrangements. Marcus was firm. Not yet. I don't get to demand time with her after what I did. I earn it, on her mother's terms. Or I don't get it at all. After the call, Marcus texted Jasmine. I've set up child support payments. Retroactive. It's not enough, but it's something. Her response came an hour later. Keep your money. That's not what Riley needs from you. Then what does she need? Marcus typed back. Time. Consistency. Proof that you're not going to disappear the moment things get hard. How do I prove that? You show up. Every time. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it costs you something. Marcus stared at the message, then typed, "When can I see her?" The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Saturday, 2 p.m. We're going to the park. You can come. But Marcus, if you show up, you don't get to leave after an hour because it's awkward. You stay. You engage. You let her see that you're interested in who she is, not just in easing your guilt. I'll be there. Marcus sent the message, then added, "Thank you for giving me a chance I don't deserve." Jasmine didn't respond to that. Saturday arrived with the kind of perfect weather that made broken things seem fixable. Marcus changed his outfit 3 times, suddenly aware that he had no idea how to dress to meet his 7-year-old daughter for the first time. He settled on jeans and a simple shirt. Not too formal. Not trying too hard. Just a man meeting a child. His child. The park was crowded with weekend families. Marcus found them near the swings, Jasmine pushing Riley higher while the little girls shrieked with laughter. The sound of it, pure joy untouched by the complicated adult world, made Marcus's throat tight. Jasmine saw him first. She said something to Riley, who looked over with those curious eyes. Marcus raised a hand in a small wave, feeling ridiculous and terrified. Riley jumped off the swing mid-arc, landed with the confidence of someone who'd done it 100 times, and walked toward him with Jasmine following close behind. "You're Marcus," Riley said, not a question, a statement, assessment in her young eyes. "I am." Marcus crouched down to her level. "You're Riley." "I know who I am," Riley tilted her head. "Are you really my dad?" The question, so direct and simple, hit him harder than any accusation. "Yes," Marcus said, meeting her eyes. "I am really your dad, and I'm so sorry I wasn't here before." Riley processed this, her face serious. "Mama said you didn't know about me, but the test proved it. Do you know about me now?" "I do now." Marcus felt Jasmine's eyes on him, measuring every word. "And I want to know more. If that's okay with you." "What do you want to know?" Riley was still assessing, this tiny person with her mother's directness and, he was beginning to see, his own analytical mind. Everything. Marcus smiled, and it felt like the first real smile in years. "What's your favorite subject in school?" "Science. We're learning about space." Riley's face lit up. "Did you know that a day on Venus is longer than a year on Venus? It takes longer to spin around once than it does to go around the sun. Isn't that weird?" "That's fascinating." Marcus found himself genuinely interested. "What else do you know about Venus?" Riley launched into an explanation of atmospheric pressure and sulfuric acid clouds, using her hands to demonstrate rotation and revolution. Marcus listened, captivated by this brilliant little person he'd missed 7 years of knowing. Jasmine watched them, and something in her expression shifted. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of seeing him as something other than the man who'd hurt her. After space talk came questions about his work, his favorite food, whether he had any pets. Riley's interrogation was thorough, and Marcus answered every question as honestly as he could. When he didn't know something, he said so. When Riley caught him in a contradiction, she called him on it, and he admitted his mistake. "I like that you don't pretend," Riley said after he'd corrected himself about his favorite movie. "Some adults pretend a lot." "I'm done pretending," Marcus said, glancing at Jasmine. "It only causes hurt." They spent 3 hours at that park. Marcus pushed Riley on the swings, helped her across the monkey bars, sat with her on a bench while she explained the difference between asteroids and comets. Jasmine stayed close, but gradually relaxed, letting them have space while staying close enough to intervene if needed. When it was time to leave, Riley hesitated, then hugged Marcus quickly before running back to her mother. "Bye, Marcus," she called over her shoulder. Are you coming back? If your mom says it's okay, I'd like to come back next week. Marcus looked at Jasmine. If that works for you. Jasmine studied him for a long moment. Next Saturday. Same time. As they walked away, Marcus heard Riley ask, Mama, is he going to be my dad now? Like, a real dad? Jasmine's answer was too quiet to hear, but she glanced back at Marcus with an expression he couldn't read. That night, Marcus lay awake thinking about Riley's question. What did it mean to be a real dad? Showing up was the start, but it couldn't be the end. Real fathers knew their children's nightmares and favorite songs. Real fathers were there for scraped knees and bad dreams. Real fathers didn't get to choose the easy moments and skip the hard ones. He texted Jasmine, "Thank you for today." She's incredible. Her response came quickly. She is. Don't let her down. I won't. The weeks that followed established a rhythm. Every Saturday, Marcus showed up. Sometimes they went to the park. Sometimes they got ice cream. Once, they went to a science museum, and Riley dragged him through every exhibit, explaining things she'd learned in school. Marcus learned that Riley hated peas but loved broccoli, that she was afraid of the dark, but too proud to admit it, that she collected rocks and could identify 30 different types, that she had her mother's laugh and his stubbornness. He also learned that being a parent wasn't about grand gestures. It was about showing up consistently, even when he had work deadlines. It was about listening to the same story about the kid at school for the 5th time. It was about remembering which stuffed animal was her favorite and why. Slowly, Riley started to trust him. Started to call him by his first name without the hesitation. Started to ask when he was coming next instead of if he was coming. But Jasmine remained distant, polite but guarded. She never brought up the past, but he could see it in her eyes every time she looked at him. The weight of what he'd done. The years he'd stolen from them both. 3 months into their new arrangement, Marcus showed up at the park to find Riley crying. Jasmine was holding her, looking exhausted. What happened? Marcus approached carefully. Bad day at school, Jasmine said quietly. Kids were asking about her dad. Where he was. Why he wasn't at the school play last week. Marcus's chest tightened. The school play. He'd had a business meeting, hadn't known about it. I should have been there. He looked at Riley's tear-stained face. I'm sorry I wasn't there. You didn't know, Jasmine said. But there was something in her voice. Disappointment, maybe. Or the confirmation of a fear. I should have asked. Marcus knelt down. Riley, I'm sorry I missed your play. What was it about? Riley sniffled. Space explorers. I was Venus. You were Venus? That must have been perfect since you know so much about Venus. Marcus wiped a tear from her cheek. Is there another performance? Can I come to that? It was just the one. Riley's voice was small. Then maybe you could perform it for me. Just us? I want to see it. Marcus looked up at Jasmine. If that's okay. Jasmine nodded slowly. They went back to Jasmine's house, and Riley performed her entire part in the living room, complete with costume changes and the cardboard Venus prop she'd made. Marcus watched like it was Broadway, applauded at the end, and told her she was the best Venus he'd ever seen. Riley beamed, crisis forgotten. That night after Marcus left, Jasmine called him. You handled that well, she said without preamble. I should have known about the play. Marcus was driving home, the guilt still fresh. I should have asked. I should have told you. Jasmine's admission surprised him. I'm not used to including anyone else in her life. It's been just us for so long that I forget you're part of this now. Are you? Marcus pulled over, needing to focus on this conversation. Forgetting, I mean. Or are you keeping me at arm's length on purpose? The silence was long. Both, Jasmine finally said. I'm trying to trust that you'll stay. But part of me is still waiting for you to prove me right, to disappear the moment being a father gets inconvenient. I'm not going anywhere. Marcus's grip on the phone tightened. I know I have to prove that. I know words aren't enough. But Jasmine, I need you to believe that I'm trying. I see that you're trying. Her voice softened slightly. But trying isn't the same as succeeding. And Riley's heart is on the line. I can't risk you trying and failing. Then tell me how to succeed. Marcus could hear the desperation creeping back in. Tell me what I need to do to prove I'm here for good. I don't know if you can prove that. Jasmine's honesty cut. Some things you just have to live. Time is the only real proof. Then I'll give you time. Marcus started driving again. However much you need. 6 months became 8. 8 became 10. Marcus showed up every Saturday without fail. Started coming to Wednesday dinners too. Learned Riley's routine, her favorite bedtime stories, the way she liked her sandwiches cut diagonal, not straight. He also started seeing Jasmine again. Not as the woman he'd hurt, but as the person she'd become. Stronger than before, wiser, more guarded, yes, but also more sure of herself. They talked during the handoffs, brief exchanges that gradually lengthened. Marcus learned about her business, which had grown despite the obstacles he'd created. Jasmine learned about his company, the changes he was making, the ways he was trying to be better. One evening after Riley had gone to bed, Jasmine asked Marcus to stay for coffee. They sat on her back porch, the summer night warm around them, cicadas singing in the trees. She loves you, Jasmine said, not looking at him. She talks about you constantly. Marcus said this. Marcus taught me that. You're becoming real to her. She's real to me too. Marcus set down his cup. She's the best thing I never knew I had. You could have known. The words weren't cruel, just sad. You could have had all of this 7 years ago. I know. Marcus finally let himself feel the full weight of that loss. I think about it every day. All the moments I missed. Her first word, her first steps, every birthday, every milestone. I destroyed that because I was too broken to believe in something good. Why? Jasmine turned to face him. Why couldn't you believe me? What was so broken in you that you had to see betrayal where it didn't exist? Marcus took a breath, decided she deserved the whole truth. My father had an affair that lasted 15 years. My whole childhood my mother knew, and stayed anyway. I watched her shrink herself, diminish herself, accept less and less until there was nothing left. When she finally died, it wasn't cancer or an accident. It was just giving up. She gave up on life because she'd given up on herself years earlier. Jasmine's expression softened. I swore I'd never be like them. Never the cheater, never the victim. But when you told me you were pregnant and the timing felt wrong, it was like history repeating itself. I saw my mother's pain in my future. I saw myself becoming her, trapped and betrayed and slowly dying inside. Marcus's voice cracked. So I left first. I made you the villain so I could be the one who escaped. I'm not your mother, Jasmine said quietly. And you're not your father. We were our own people, making our own choices. But you couldn't see that because you were looking backward instead of forward. I know that now. Marcus met her eyes. But knowing it now doesn't undo the damage. No, it doesn't. Jasmine wrapped her arms around herself. But maybe understanding why helps. Maybe it means you won't do it again. I won't. Marcus's voice was firm. I can't promise I'll be perfect. I can't promise I won't mess up. But I promise I'll never again choose fear over trust. I'll never again run instead of fighting for what matters. They sat in comfortable silence, the past heavy between them but no longer crushing. Riley asked me something yesterday, Jasmine said eventually. She asked if you and I were going to be together. Like her friend's parents. Marcus's heart stuttered. What did you tell her? I told her that you and I are friends now. That we're learning how to be Riley's parents together. That's the truth. Jasmine looked at him. Isn't it? Is that all we are? The question slipped out before Marcus could stop it. Friends. What else would we be? But Jasmine's voice had changed, gone softer. I don't know. Marcus turned to face her fully. But sometimes, when we're all together, it feels like something more. like we're remembering how to be what we were before I destroyed it. We can't go back to what we were. Jasmine shook her head. That couple doesn't exist anymore. Too much has happened. Too much has broken. I'm not asking to go back. Marcus leaned forward. I'm asking if we could go forward. Differently. Better. With the lessons we've learned and the people we've become. Marcus, Jasmine started, but he continued. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not even asking you to trust me yet. I'm just asking if maybe, someday, we could be more than parents who coexist for their daughter's sake. I don't know if I can do that. Jasmine's voice trembled. I don't know if I can risk my heart with you again. I understand. Marcus stood, knew he'd pushed too far. I just wanted you to know that if you ever decide you can take that risk, I'll be here, proving every day that I'm worth it. He left, and Jasmine sat alone on her porch, tears sliding down her face. Because part of her wanted to believe him. Part of her remembered the man she'd fallen in love with, and could see glimpses of him in the father Marcus was becoming. But the hurt was still there, living in her bones. And hurt that deep didn't heal on anyone's timeline but its own. Another year passed. Riley turned 8. Marcus was there for her birthday party, helping set up, making kids laugh, being the dad he should have been from the start. Jasmine watched him, and something shifted. Not forgiveness, exactly, but maybe acceptance. He'd shown up for 13 months straight, through holidays and sick days and soccer games and dentist appointments. Through the boring, tedious, everyday moments that made up a life, he'd proven he could stay. That night after everyone had left, after Riley was in bed exhausted and happy, Jasmine found Marcus cleaning up the kitchen. You don't have to do that, she said. You've done enough today. I don't mind. Marcus loaded another plate into the dishwasher. Besides, I'm in no rush to leave. Jasmine picked up a dish towel, started drying. They worked in comfortable silence, the rhythm of it domestic and natural. Marcus, Jasmine said eventually, can I ask you something? Anything. That post you made, admitting you were wrong, what did it cost you? Marcus set down the sponge, leaned against the counter. Everything and nothing. My fiancé left. My business partners questioned my judgment. My mother was disappointed in who I'd become. My reputation took a hit. But? Jasmine heard the unspoken word, but none of it mattered compared to what I gained. My daughter. The chance to be her father. The chance to become someone better than I was. He looked at Jasmine. The chance to maybe, someday, earn back even a fraction of what you might have felt for me. I never stopped feeling for you. The admission came out quiet. That's what made it so hard. I hated you for what you did, but I couldn't stop loving who you'd been, who I thought you were. And now? Marcus moved closer. Who do you think I am now? I think you're someone who made a terrible mistake and is spending every day trying to make up for it. Jasmine set down the towel. I think you're a good father who Riley adores. I think you're someone who finally figured out that running from fear only creates more fear. That's all true. Marcus stopped just out of reach. But what I'm really asking is, do you think I could ever be someone you could trust again? Someone you could love again? Jasmine closed her eyes, felt the tears coming. I don't know. The hurt is still there, Marcus. Every time I look at you, I remember that night in your penthouse. I remember losing everything. I remember being alone and pregnant and terrified. I know. Marcus's voice broke, and I would give anything to take that away from you. But you can't. Jasmine opened her eyes. So the question becomes, can I live with the memory and still move forward? Can I build something new on a foundation that's already cracked? I think people do it every day. Marcus reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His hand touched her face, gentle as a question. I think broken things can be remade into something stronger. If both people want it enough. Do you want it enough? Jasmine's voice was barely a whisper. More than I've ever wanted anything. Marcus moved closer still, I want to be the man who keeps promises to you, who protects you instead of hurting you, who builds you up instead of tearing you down. I want to be the father Riley deserves and the partner you deserve. That's a lot of wanting. Jasmine tried to smile through tears. Then let me start proving it's more than words. Marcus leaned his forehead against hers. Let me show you, every day, that I can be that man. That I am that man. That I've become him through loving you both. Jasmine felt the last wall crumble. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the willingness to try. The courage to hope. Okay, she whispered. But slowly. We do this slowly. As slow as you need. Marcus smiled, and it was the smile she remembered from before everything broke. I've got time. All the time in the world. He kissed her then, gentle and careful, like she was something precious he'd almost lost, and couldn't believe he was being allowed to hold again. In her bedroom, Riley stirred, heard the murmur of adult voices, and smiled in her sleep. Her family was finding its way back together. Different than other families, maybe. But hers, real, true. The future would bring more challenges, more moments of doubt and fear, more times when the past would rise up and threaten the present. But they would face it together, this broken family learning how to heal. Marcus had spent 7 years running from love because he was afraid of pain. Now he was learning that pain was part of love, that fear was part of caring, that the risk of heartbreak was the price of having a heart at all. And he was learning that some things, once truly broken, couldn't be fixed. They could only be rebuilt into something new, something that carried the scars of what came before, but refused to be defined by them. 3 years later, Marcus stood in a small backyard, watching Riley run through sprinklers with kids from her class. Jasmine stood beside him, her hand in his, a small diamond glinting on her finger. They'd gotten married quietly, just family, no social media announcements. Some things were too precious to share with the world. Riley splashed over to them, dripping and laughing. Dad, aren't you going to come in? Dad. She'd started calling him that 6 months ago, casual as breathing. And every time she said it, Marcus felt his heart crack open a little more. Give me a minute, Marcus said, and Riley ran back to her friends. You okay? Jasmine squeezed his hand. Better than okay? Marcus pulled her close. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Even though it took us years to get here. Even though we had to break before we could rebuild. Especially because of that. Marcus kissed the top of her head. I'm not grateful for the pain I caused. I'll regret that forever. But I'm grateful for what we've become. For who we are now. Jasmine looked up at him, and in her eyes, he saw it. Not just love, not just trust, but forgiveness. Real, complete, hard-won forgiveness. I love you, she said. I loved you before, when we were young and naive. I hated you for what you did. And now I love you again, deeper and truer because we've both survived the worst of ourselves. I love you too. Marcus held her tighter. And I promise every day for the rest of my life to be worthy of that love. Riley called them to join her, and they did, splashing into the water like children themselves. And for a moment, the past didn't matter. The DNA test that had proven what Jasmine had always known. The 7 years of lost time. The public accusations and private pain. None of it mattered as much as this moment. This family. This love that had been destroyed and rebuilt into something unbreakable. Because sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about people who never face obstacles. They're about people who destroy each other and then make the impossible choice to heal, to forgive, to believe that broken things can be made whole again. Marcus had spent 7 years believing he was right. Now he spent every day being grateful he'd been proven wrong. Because being wrong had given him everything that mattered. His daughter, his wife, his family, his whole heart.